The views expressed on the Midvale Main Street Theatre podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Midvale Main Street Theatre, its owners, advertisers, or volunteers.
I guess the way I'm going to be a singer is if I get up on stage and learn how to act and dance too.
What was the most challenging part of bringing that larger-than-life character onto the stage?
Trying not to be offensive.
When you hear that Tammy's going to revive it, what are you thinking? How are you feeling?
I was a little sad that at first I wasn't invited back. But then I realized, I'm like, no, I have to earn this. The funnest thing in the world is getting an audience to thoroughly hate you.
Absolutely. I'm going to kill you, Jeremy. That is not true.
I walked in and there was no filter whatsoever with Midvale.
Good.
But I am under the belief that, hey, if the audience isn't pumped up, if they're not energetic, all you have to do is just be a little bit more energetic. And if I am truly under the impression that if an actor can't control the audience, then that shows the amateur side of them. You know, being able to control the audience and have that stage presence is what being an actor is.
Line! Aloha and hello. Welcome back to the Midvale Main Street Theatre podcast. This is Michael Howell, your host, and yeah, let's just jump into it today. Not a lot of news this week from the Midvale Main Street Theatre other than they've been putting out some promotional material for Disenchanted. I definitely recommend going over to their Facebook page and checking out what they have. They have a couple pictures and things like that for Disenchanted coming up. And then they also posted this video of Sarah Goldberg, who's playing Pocahontas, absolutely killing her song that she's singing in the show. So yeah, go ahead and check it out and get your tickets because they are on sale now. So go ahead and grab them. Get excited for the show. It's going to be awesome. So yeah, since it is a light news week and, there's not much going on, I did want to just jump into kind of sharing your guys' responses to last week's episode. We had a lot of good feedback from everybody listening and trying to interact with us and everything. And first of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for that. It was great to, put that episode out there. I was obviously very worried about how it was going to come across and everything like that, just with the topics that we touched on and everything. But we got great positive feedback, no hate or anything like that. So I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody's responses and us keeping the conversation going. It's all great, so thank you so much. But along with that, we definitely did get some feedback that I wanted to touch on really quick. So the first thing that I wanted to touch on was a response that I got from Kate Rufiner, who was, a big part of this whole scandal that kind of kicked off the episode's topic and everything like that. She did just write into me really quick, and I wanted to discuss that briefly with you. So the big thing is that she did want to clarify that Kim, who was going to be cast as Donna in her cast of Mamma Mia, she did actually make it to a large part of the callbacks rather than just the last 10 minutes or so, like I said on the podcast before. So yes, I did want to say that she was there for about an hour and a half, is what the director's saying. So wanted to clarify that. I wanted to be transparent about that. So, yet again, that kind of puts a weird little twist on this whole controversy because she was at the callbacks and she was, willing and everything like that. So, just another weird little hitch in the Empress's emails back and forth with Kate. So yes, there's that. But beyond that though, I, did want to say that she was an awesome sport. Thank you so much again for all your help. And, thank you for your kind words after the fact. And thank you everybody for your kind words. Just wanted to kind of touch on those really quick if I could. So yeah, I had a comment from Eve Garcia, who I've known for quite a while. She was actually my first music director at Midvale. But yeah, she commented on our Podbean page, which is, you can find, by the way, at mmstpodcast.podbean.com. Anyway, she wrote something that is very important for all of us to, hear and understand. So I just wanted to kind of quote that a little bit. She said, quote, "I think our ultimate goal should always be to create the best show. At least that's the kind of theater I want to be a part of. But being at peace with the best choices for a show isn't something actors start off feeling. I think it takes experience to see the big picture with casting, which is very true, very important. It's something that we'll actually talk about in today's upcoming episode. We kind of all, I think, start off with the thought, hey, I want to be the lead. I want to have as many lines and as many singing parts as I can. But ultimately, we do need to keep in mind that we need to focus on what's best for the show, ultimately, no matter what that means, no matter what part that means you get, blah, blah, blah. So, yes, continuing here with her quote. But as long as actors look down on ensemble parts, companies will probably be secretive about pre-casting. And that is very true. Again, just kind of going with what she's saying, it's hard to digest sometimes, but sometimes we do need to be okay with taking the smaller role. I look back on my career and it's always hard when I've had to take, smaller roles and everything like that. And you have in mind this part that you want so much, and then you have to take a step back, look at this guy's performance and be like, hey, this is what was ultimately best for the production. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to kind of discuss with you guys as far as responses go. You can obviously go to my podcast's Podbean page, Facebook page, even my personal Facebook page, and kind of check out what everyone's been saying, because we got a lot of good feedback from a lot of people, and I just love the discussion that last episode brought us, and that we are continuing to discuss these things going forward. Anyway, let's jump into today's episode. Today's episode is an awesome one, a very special one for me. I got to sit down with Taylor and Jeremy Heaps, and we talked for a long time about, their experiences separately at Midvale, and then how they met and doing shows together and everything like that. So I did have to break it up into another two-parter. So this week's episode is part one. In it, we discuss Taylor's introduction to Midvale, how she came to Midvale, and then some of her earlier parts and how and why she did the shows that she did and her process and everything like that. Then we also got to talk to Jeremy about the same thing, about how he came to Midvale and some of his earlier roles and everything at Midvale. So that's part one. Then part two, next week's episode, we will go over how those two met, how they fell in love and everything, all the cute little stuff, and then shows that they've done together. And we really dig into, their process and everything like that throughout both episodes. So yeah, be excited. Stick around for today's episode. It's going to be a great one. Without further ado, here is part one with Taylor and Jeremy Heaps. Well, cool. Well, yeah, we are here. I'm hanging out at Taylor and Jeremy's house. Go ahead and say hi to you guys.
I just want to put out there that he said my name first.
Which one sounds better to you guys? Taylor and Jeremy, or Jeremy and Taylor?
Whatever one sounds better to her.
Exactly. That's the perfect answer.
Taylor and Jeremy.
Okay, perfect. Well, yeah, we are hanging out here. I was just informed it's the first night of Hanukkah, so happy Hanukkah to all of our Jewish listeners and Jeremy and everything. You guys have any special plans for Hanukkah or anything?
Probably maybe light the menorah.
Light the menorah.
Yeah, cool.
We don't have the kids this weekend, so just kind of hanging out, chilling.
Right. Cool. Well, that's awesome. Yeah.
Talk
Do you
about
guys?
the Maccabees.
Yes, I heard about that in school, and it's a pretty cool story for sure. Is that this is a weird kind of thing, but is that a big part of Jewish heritage? Is that like a big story?
Hanukkah is actually a minor holiday in the Jewish community, and this telling of the story and like the game of dreidel and everything like that, it's more so to just pass on the tradition. The one way that we believe that we can keep the memories of our ancestors alive is by reliving the traditions. And
Gotcha.
Hanukkah is just basically if you imagine your cell phone battery was at 1% and it lasted 8 days, that's kind of the feeling. It's
right.
Just
Cool.
Wow.
Yes, very cool. Well, awesome. Well, yes, let's just dive into it. How does that sound for you guys?
Good.
Cool. So I have Taylor and Jeremy on, and we're going to kind of break down both of your guys' quote-unquote careers at Midvale while we go. But we do this chronologically. So we're going to have to start with Taylor. Okay. And I apologize, Jeremy, but feel free to jump in with any questions you have for her or comments or whatever else. Cool?
Sounds good.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Taylor, how are you?
I'm great. How
Good.
are you?
Good. I've asked you about 10 times now. But so I don't really know much about you, and that's very sad, and I want to fix that right now. So, Taylor, were you born and raised here in Utah?
I was actually born in San Jose, California.
Okay, cool.
And I lived there for 4 or 5 years, and then I kind of went back and forth between Utah and California, parental stuff.
Gotcha.
Just
sure.
They shared me.
Gotcha. Sure. Okay. So what made you stay in Utah full time then?
My mom had custody
Just
of me.
gain custody. Got
Yeah.
it. Well, cool. So was theater a big part of your life growing up?
Actually, okay, so not necessarily for me. It was special to me because I grew up with my dad. He worked at a cabaret theater in San Jose. It was called Big
cool.
Lil's Cabaret.
Okay.
It's not there anymore, sadly. Otherwise, I would get up and move right away and go work there. But I grew up always hanging out at this cabaret theater, and this was like there were drag queens. There were it was when I was first introduced to the LGBTQ community, and because I was just so confused why that man sounded like a girl,
Gotcha.
and
Sure.
why those men were wearing makeup.
Okay.
But it was actually really cool because one of the people who would look after me. Hi, neighbors.
Yeah.
One of the people who would look after me while my dad was backstage was a very flamboyant gay man. And so it was actually really cool to get that experience. And it was one of those typical melodrama theaters, like Desert Star, but less
Mormon.
religious based.
Yeah.
That's the next way. It was like at intermission. It was drag queens would pull you up, and they would have a boa twirling contest between
awesome.
audience members, and so it was more dirty humor. But other than that, I never did theater in high school. I auditioned for things, but I never really made it because I did not know how to audition.
Okay.
And and I didn't have any trained technique or anything. I didn't even have much practice except singing at home and thinking I was going to be a rock star.
Gotcha.
But it wasn't until after high school that I met Tammy at a party at the theater. It was a magazine launch party.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, thank you for hosting this party here. It's been really cool. And what else do you guys do here? And she told me that auditions for Hairspray were coming up.
Sure.
And so, of course, I had just seen that movie.
Right. Okay.
And I had seen the John Waters movie. And I auditioned, and I got the part.
Yeah, cool.
So.
Perfect. So in high school, just jumping back there a little bit, did you take any classes or anything, or is it just trying out for the musicals kind of thing?
Middle school, I took a theater class because it was like, which kind of arts class would you like to take for this quarter? And so I always wanted to do it, but I was like, nope, I'm going to be a singer, not a stage actor. And then I realized, okay, well, agencies in Utah, they don't have anything to do with just music.
Right.
There's hardly anything in just being a musician in Utah when it comes to finding an agent for you.
Right.
They mainly focus on acting, and I was like, well, if I'm going to get up on stage, whether it's for just singing or anything, I guess the way I'm going to be a singer is if I get up on stage and learn how to act and dance too.
Right. Gotcha. Cool. So yeah, then you did meet Tammy at that party. You auditioned. You got the part. How was it trying to learn how to act and how to dance and everything like that? Was that hard for you at all?
So I was a little delusional. I thought I was a little bit better than I was.
I feel like we all kind of have that when we start.
You go in and you see all these way talented people that have vocal training. They have acting training. They lived their whole life in theater, whether it be in school or. And I went in there with this poppy voice, and I was like, I can sing some high notes. And they're like, yes, but we need you to say these lines too.
Right. Gotcha.
Oh shit. Okay. And so it was definitely, I learned a lot from the people around me, especially Kat Stoutzenberger. She was the Tracy Turnblad with me. She was cast A, I was cast B. I was technically her understudy.
Gotcha. Okay.
In Hairspray. And so I learned a lot from watching her. And I was like, I need to learn how to do what she does.
Gotcha.
So it was
Cool.
definitely an adventure trying to learn how to do this whole new thing.
Right, sure. So I actually didn't know that was double cast. I thought that it was Kat and that was it. I thought Rent was honestly the first time that she had double cast anything. So, yeah, how was it looking at that? Did you feel any envy, or was it just I'm trying to learn from you. This is awesome. I get to work with you so closely, kind of thing.
Yeah. So there was a few leads that were that were double cast.
Okay.
There was Tracy, there was Penny, and I think there was another one, but I can't remember.
Sure.
But it was a little hard just because, you know, you do get a little bit less rehearsal time, but you have to learn how to learn certain things from the sideline, watching another person do it. So I think that's honestly how I learned a lot of things, was by watching Kat do her thing on stage. And I was like, okay, do I want to do it just like her? And I was new to theater, so I didn't know, do both casts have to do things exactly the same? Because especially when the rest of the cast is used to reacting a certain way to somebody's lines, if I say that line differently, who knows if they are still going to react the same way to me saying it, or if they have to, or if they're open to being creative with both Tracy Turnblads.
Right. So what did you end up doing? Did you try and emulate her, or did you do your own thing?
I tried a lot to be like her. I had my own things that I wanted, like, but that's what's cool is that when you have somebody that you're understudying, you can see what they're doing, and in your mind, you're always thinking, even if you're not cast as a certain part, sometimes you look at somebody playing a part and you go, "Oh, I would do this differently."
Right.
I would have fun with that line, but I'd say it this way, you know. And so it was cool because I got to do those things that I would have done differently, because I did do some things differently.
Cool.
But I was definitely knowledgeable enough to know that she was better than I was.
Well, you know, I've heard so many great things about her, you know, and her performance and everything like that. And we'll kind of get to how that really affected you a little bit later on. But what was the most challenging part of your first, you know, lead role?
There was a lot riding on how much I could take in. I was never a dancer. Well, I was when I was little, but the most challenging part for me was probably not only having a lot of pressure of being a lead, but also you're learning everything at the same time of having you're on a pedestal, you know, and which is fine. It's to be expected anytime you're in a lead role, you know. But it was just a lot to learn.
Sure.
It was a lot to learn when you've never done it before.
Yeah. I look back on my first lead, and I'm sure, Jeremy, you're the same way. It's just like, I was...
What's the lead?
Whatever. We are getting to that part, and you're... Okay.
He's getting there.
But, yeah, we'll get to all of your amazing accomplishments. But, I was just so nervous the first time I did it. And so just like... And I had been in shows before that, too. So getting thrust into the lead, I'm sure must have been difficult.
I mean, it was like the best difficult thing ever.
Right.
It was like the best difficult thing to ever happen to me. So
right. Well, so I look at you and I see that you have such a big personality, especially on stage, you know, and everything like that. Did you have to take a second to try and break out of your shell, or were you always just kind of born with that personality?
I was kind of always wanting to be on the stage. So I was thriving.
Cool. Good.
I was loving it, and I never actually got really nervous until like 5 minutes before you go on stage and you go, "Oh shit, this is happening." What? When am I going to wake up?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm very sad that I missed that show, but it sounds like it was an awesome show. Was it a good run? Do you have any memories of actually doing the run or anything?
Yes, I do. I do have, It's very vague because it was so long ago.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about this. Wasn't it like 10 years ago at this point?
It was, I think, 2011.
Okay.
So it wasn't that long, but I do have a shitty memory. So
gotcha.
But it was just an all new experience, and so I was kind of starstruck with everybody around me. But it was just a really fun experience. And I remember being on stage for that first time, other than like singing in front of my family.
Right.
I was like, people are hearing me sing. And then you look back years later and you're like, oh, good God, I was awful. What was that?
Oh, man. It's unfortunately, yeah, I feel that for sure. Some of those performances from back in high school, especially, I can't even watch anymore. But anyway, well, cool. It sounds like you had an awesome show and everything like that. What was the next show that you did after Hairspray?
I was all shook up.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So after Hairspray, after that closed, what were you feeling? Were you just hooked on Midvale, or were you kind of just, I don't know if I want to keep going with this kind of thing, or?
I definitely wanted to continue doing it. Okay. And I was like, I want to be in every single show. And I have.
A little tangent, actually, because Ashley and I, a couple months ago, were trying to figure out who's done the most shows on Midvale stage. And we were thinking it's got to be one of us, me or Ashley. But then Ashley like stopped mid-sentence and she gasped and she's like, Taylor, you know, and we just like, I'm pretty sure you got everybody beat.
Sure.
Yeah, but cool. So All Shook Up comes around. Unfortunately, since we have both of you guys on, we may have to skim over a couple shows, just kind of how it goes. But
totally fine. I skim over some too.
Sure, sure. But so All Shook Up, Sweeney Todd. Were you in Sweeney Todd?
Yes, I was.
And then Rent were kind of the next three shows.
Yeah.
How did you grow between those three shows, if you did at all?
Definitely, I think the major thing is one thing, again, learning from the different people around me.
Okay.
And learning from different music directors and how different music directors do teach differently.
Right.
And you kind of find what works for you. And I learned that there are so many different ways to use your voice other than chest voice. And because I was all chest voice.
Yeah.
I thought head voice sounded like church.
Right.
And like head voice meant a hymn to me.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because Ashley's the same way. And honestly, I didn't even know that was like a thing with female performers, you know? So yeah, I get it for sure. Well, cool. Okay. Well, yeah, that's awesome. And I'm sure that you had many great experiences that we unfortunately just don't have the time to get into, but
we could go for hours.
Exactly. The next show after Rent was
I don't know.
Avenue Q.
Oh, it was Avenue Q.
I believe.
That's what I meant to say.
Right. Sure. So going into Avenue Q, because at this point I had been at the theater for a couple months at that point. I think I remember this correctly, but I think I knew that you wanted Gary Coleman in Avenue Q. Is that correct?
So I was actually going for it because I knew it was like everybody is a lead in this show kind of thing. I actually went in thinking I want to play anybody, any of the girls.
Okay.
I didn't know anything about the show. I was going into it completely blind.
Me too.
And then we had auditions, and I think we had callbacks later that day, and we were asked, okay, here's the sides that you should study, and then like right before callbacks, the director emailed me and said, hey, can you also learn this song?
Right.
And it was Gary Coleman's Schadenfreude.
Okay.
And so I was like, oh,
interesting.
okay.
Right.
And I guess by that it meant I've learned a lot on how to build a character.
Yeah.
I don't think very many people could. I'm sure a lot of people could do it, but it's harder than it sounds to act like something you are like completely not.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was my next question. What did you do once you found out that you got Gary Coleman? How did you prepare? Like, how would you even go about doing that?
I watched a lot of Gary Coleman.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
Cool.
And I took advice. I took a lot of advice, and I said, I don't know how to do his signature line as well as him. But I remember somebody, I don't remember who it was, but somebody said, you need to pout your lips out as far as you can and say, what you talking about? Like, as if you are Sebastian on The Little Mermaid.
Right.
What you talking about, Willis? You know?
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense for sure. Cool. Yeah. Was there any other advice that you got? Anything that sticks out in particular?
Not that sticks out in particular. I think it was just, let go of your femininity a little bit.
Sure. Sure. Gotcha. Well, yeah, that kind of, again, leads into my next question. What was the most challenging part of bringing that larger-than-life character onto the stage?
Trying not to be offensive.
Yeah.
Trying not to be offensive. I'm not going to tiptoe around that.
Yeah.
And, there's what was really
You were
cool
playing
to
a
think
black
about.
character.
I was playing a black character,
Right.
and I was a white girl. But I mean, the original show, it was a very tall blonde woman who played him.
Oh, really?
Because I guess it was actually written for Gary Coleman, and he had agreed to it.
Right.
And then when they got to a reading, he's like, "I ain't doing this shit."
Really?
And so
I
they're
didn't
like,
know
"Well," they were like, "Well, okay, this lady is gonna play you now."
Yeah. Wow.
And so that's why I was okay with it, because I'm like, all right, a blonde woman,
Right.
a tall blonde woman played
Gotcha.
him on Broadway, was it, or off Broadway? I don't remember. It was in the very beginning though.
Gotcha.
And so I was like,
Broadway.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
And so I was like, okay, if she can do it, I can do it. And I just have to act like Gary Coleman. Because if it's theater, if people can't use their imaginations, they honestly shouldn't go see a show.
Yeah.
But there are lines.
Right.
There are lines, and there are things that you should not do to just,
Yeah.
just be careful with what you do when you're bringing race into it.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think anyone that watched your performance could say that you were trying to make fun of anybody or anything like that.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the point of that was to make fun of Gary Coleman.
Right.
For sure.
Sure. But it was all lighthearted. It was.
May he rest in peace.
Yes. And again, leading into my next question, even after the show opened and like some of the reviews and stuff, they kind of touched on that a little bit, kind of inevitable just with the timing and everything like that. Mm-hmm. How did you feel with all that?
The one reviewer said she was very talented at, getting the character, but it was jarring every time she would come on stage, and being a short white girl coming out and being Gary Coleman.
Right.
And he said it was jarring, and so I felt bad. But yeah, it was...
I'm sure it was odd, at least, to have to deal with that.
And I remember also there was a line that I had to change because it was too much. There was a line that he says...
I remember this, yeah. Go ahead, though.
I already achieved my damn purpose in life. And then everybody would laugh. And then everybody would laugh. And then I had to finish my life. Or I had to finish my line that said, ever since then, it's just been a slow, painful walk to the grave.
Right.
And then everybody stopped
Just
laughing and
silent.
went, too soon.
Yeah.
And I was like, Tammy, can I cut that last part of the line? Because people stop laughing.
Right.
And then I say a line that makes it not funny anymore.
Yeah.
Our production of Avenue Q was right before your guys, and that was also around the time you died. We cut that line too.
Yeah.
Like it was just
It
feel
was
like
funny
I've already
enough.
achieved my damn purpose in life.
It was funny enough just doing the first half of that line,
Right.
and then we're like, okay, let's cut it.
Sure. Gotcha. Well, cool. So yeah, I mean, Avenue Q was an awesome experience.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously. Overall, I'm sure that you don't regret playing that part or anything.
No,
Yeah,
it was a
good.
really, really fun experience.
Cool. Good. So I believe if I ever get these timelines wrong, by the way, let me know for sure. But
I won't know.
Okay. Cool. Well, then yes, this is the timeline. Whatever. Anyway, the next show that you had, I believe, was Hairspray again. Kind of
Something like
jumping
that,
back
yeah.
into it. So,
There were other things. I think there was like To Kill a Mockingbird and stuff like that. And
gotcha. Yeah, gotcha.
timely enough, I played the racist Miss Stephanie right after
good.
that. So
Just running the gambit with
I got
that.
to say the N-word on stage.
Yeah.
That was, it was just the year of race.
Yeah. Sure. Gotcha. Well, I mean, we're jumping back into Hairspray, so it just kept going
right.
after that. But yeah. So we already touched on how important Hairspray was for your development and everything like that. When you hear that Tammy is going to revive it, what are you thinking? How are you feeling?
What I was feeling at the time.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little sad that at first that I wasn't invited back.
Yeah.
But then I realized I'm like, no, I have to earn this.
Mm-hmm.
Just like mostly everybody else.
Yeah.
And it brought back a lot of memories with Kat.
Right.
But I thought I kind of owed it to her. I kind of owed it to her to show her how far I've come.
Sure.
Show Kat how far I've come.
Gotcha.
And I was like, nope, if she were here, she'd want to earn her part back too.
Yeah.
And so I was like bitter for 2 hours, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to do this shit.
Yeah. Gotcha. That's always a difficult thing. But so you touched on that. I was going to ask, what, if anything, did you like try to do to honor Kat with that performance? Because her and then Russ, yes, they both unfortunately passed away before we could revive the show.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, everything like that. But did you try to honor her at all, and what did you do if so?
We definitely incorporated both of them into the set.
Yes.
We put pictures up in the little Turnblad house, the moving set piece. We had
Right.
framed pictures of them both.
Yeah.
And just taking little things that she had done in the prior performance that I hadn't done in the first time because I didn't have those abilities yet, and just incorporating those into like my techniques and stuff.
Right. Gotcha.
And, yeah.
Well, I have to say, just as a little side note, I think that's one of my favorite traditions that Midvale has is we always try to put Kat's name or something
Somewhere.
of her on the set.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I rent Spelling Bee, Hairspray again. I just, very cool. But so I could be wrong in this assumption, but I would gather that this role in this show is very important to you.
Yes, definitely.
Is it your most? And if so, why so?
I think yes, because it introduced me to theater when I didn't know what theater was, but I wanted it anyway.
Right. Gotcha.
It taught me why I wanted it.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
There's been a lot of special roles to me, but this one hits home the most.
Yeah. Cool.
And it's the hardest to put away.
Yeah. We all have that role, right?
Yeah.
For
It's
sure.
hard to put that poofy wig back up.
It's Mark for me.
Mark?
Yeah.
Nice.
And I wonder how many of these roles are the first big roles that people get, you know?
Yeah.
It just seems like that. Rent, before even doing Rent, was my favorite show. So getting to play that part was just a dream come true anyway, you know? But I would also assume that first role, just having all the nerves and excitement and everything is going to define who you are.
Right.
So, yeah. Anyway, so after that, we have a couple shows that are kind of similar. Wedding Singer and Grease. Those are the two next ones that you were a part of.
Yeah.
And so in Wedding Singer, you played Linda, was
I
her character,
did.
right? And then Marty in Grease.
Yes.
Yes. My question is, did you... You're laughing. Why are you laughing?
Because I kind of acquired a type for myself.
Okay.
I think that's what you're about to hit
A
on.
little bit. My question was going to be, how do you choose the roles that you want to take?
I think the first part is usually vocal range. And I think, okay, could I sing this part? All right. Would I want to? And usually the answer is yes, I would want to. Sometimes the answer is no, I can't do that.
Whatever. I don't believe you with that, but you know. Cool.
But a lot of times I'm like, I base it on how much fun would I have. Like there's some roles that I wouldn't necessarily want to do, even if it is like the leading lady or something like that. Like, just because they're a little bit more boring. Sometimes the supporting role is a lot funner.
Way more fun.
Make them hate you.
Do you remember ever like having that epiphany at all? Because when I started, I just wanted the leads, you know?
Yeah, I do actually. I was actually messaging my dad, and I was like, I don't know how to play a villain. I don't know how to play the bad guy. And he's like, are you kidding me? He's like, the funnest thing in the world is getting an audience to thoroughly hate you.
Absolutely. 100%.
It's the funnest thing in the world. And if they hate you after the show, it means you did your job so well. If they hate you but hug you, like, oh, I hated you so much.
Right, exactly. That's cool.
And so it was really cool. And my dad made me, he opened my eyes to that. And, it was really cool because I was like, from that point on, I was like, supporting roles. I play the villain. I want to play the slut.
Well, it's cool too, especially since you said that you didn't really have much acting training or anything like that. Going from that to like a character actor. Yeah. It's very cool.
Definitely a character actor.
Sure. So was Wedding Singer the first kind of acting challenge in that regard, in playing the villain kind of thing? Or?
So obviously Tracy was for me because I mean she may be a leading lady, but she's also a character actress.
Sure.
But I think Linda was
The first villain, maybe?
the first villain. Yeah,
Okay.
it was that I can remember. I'm umpteen thousand shows.
I was gonna say, yeah.
But yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun, and it was really fun to have you as my counterpart.
Oh man, yeah, that was a fun show for sure. Well, it's sad because even going like I don't think I've ever been in a show with you, Jeremy.
No, we've never been in a show
Right,
together.
That
and then
blows my mind.
there's only like a certain amount that Taylor and I have been in together, and we've all done so many shows. It's just weird.
Well, see, here's the reason though, is because Michael and I are both kind of geared towards the same type.
Yeah.
But see, when it comes to actually going head to head,
Yeah, I know what you're gonna
that
say.
I know that I would be like, oh, okay, I'm
I'm gonna kill you, Jeremy. That is not true.
That's me and Ashley because I think it's hilarious that like me and Ashley are like your wife, for anybody who doesn't know this.
Yeah.
We are the same type. We have the same type of voice. We have very similar voices, and we kind of look similar too. We've been told, and by me.
No, she said as much too. It's very true. So.
And so we go up for a lot of the same roles.
Yeah.
And just like you and Jeremy would go for a lot of the same. I think it's just hilarious. The two couples are like,
right.
complete, like we could
The
double
two
cast
Midvale
so many
couples.
shows.
We have played the same role before, though.
Right.
Like, we've played the same role in different types of productions.
Me and Ashley too.
Yeah.
We both played Lucy the Slut.
Right, exactly. And we'll get there in just a second
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah, stop
but
jumping the gun.
No, you're fine. I was going to ask you a question. I forgot it. Oh, yeah. The question was, do you guys ever feel any weirdness if you go up for a role and don't get it? You feel any weirdness to the person that got it? I'm not asking specifics, but
not if they beat me. So if like an example was Rock of Ages, Todd McRae, he got the part that I wanted. I wanted to play Franz, and as I take a step back and I look at like the audition and callback process and everything, I was like, no. Compared to Todd, Todd won the role, and Todd definitely could outplay me in that performance. So. If the person can show me that they beat me, then I am 100%, no awkwardness, anything like that. If it comes down to something to, like it was the director's son, or if it was just cast because of because they're my best friend, I know they can do it, or this person didn't show up to callbacks, but they still beat me.
That
donated a lot of money.
Yeah,
or something.
then that's when
happened
it's
to
the
me.
awkwardness of like, what? Like, you didn't even show up to callbacks. Like, you got to at least show up.
Right. That's my biggest pet peeve. Well, I'm not going to throw this particular theater company under the bus, but Ashley and I were originally cast in a different production of Rent, not Midvale's production, and we went to callbacks for 5 hours at least.
Ooh,
it was a
long.
terrible, brutal callback. Ashley had to sing Without You probably 15 times. It was ridiculous. So we got cast. We were very excited. We come to the first rehearsal, and we find out that all of the leads, none of them had been to the callback.
Oh, wow.
And that pissed me off so much. And I was just like, it was very obvious that the director contacted his friends and was like, hey, just come do this part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's so disrespectful.
They made the lead parts seem available.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm going off on a tangent, but then there's another like audition with that same theater company who had posted that they were auditioning for 2 shows. And I was interested in one of them, so I went to this audition, and then they were like, hey, would you be interested in this other show? I said, no, blah, 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 fine. About a week later, I found out that they had precast the show that I was auditioning for.
Wow.
They just completely precast it, so they were just wasting my time. I don't know. It just pisses me off.
There was actually one. It was a production. I won't throw any theaters. I won't throw out any names.
Sure.
But there was a production of Seussical the Musical that was going on. Very, very volunteer, family type cast. Very, very kind of small fish type of thing.
Sure.
The director was brand new. It was her first time ever directing, and I had known her from a previous production. So I reached out to her because they had posted open auditions, and I said, hey, I knew that I was right for at least one of the roles, and I wanted to get my daughter Scarlett involved. And so I said, can I have her come out and audition for the baby elephant?
Right.
Are you guys doing the baby elephant? They said, everyone is welcome to audition. We would love to see her, blah, blah, blah. So
Wasn't she like 3 years old?
yeah, she was 3. So I spent many, many hours working with her on a song and working on her on, okay, go stand on the X, and
Right.
I put her through some really big conditioning when it came to that. And then we go in, I sang, then Scarlett came in, she tried. It wasn't a fully successful audition, But then
For a
we
3-year-old,
kinda,
it was pretty good.
for a 3-year-old,
Sure.
good. But when they came in, they gave us a call back and they said, hey, we loved your audition. Honestly, we would like to offer you one of the lead roles. And I was like, and what about my daughter? They said, we're not casting children. And so I said,
what?
I went, well, hold on a second. And I let her have it. I was like, look, if you had just been upfront with me and you had told me, hey, we're not casting children, I would have went, awesome. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thanks for messaging me back. I wouldn't have auditioned. And I said, but the fact that you made me believe that you guys were even looking at children. Mm-hmm. It would be another thing if it was like, hey, we appreciate your daughter auditioning. We have someone who was able to audition a little bit better, more right for the part. That's a completely different thing too. But the fact that they had no intention of casting anyone under the age of 16, and they told me that it was okay to bring my daughter. I was like, guys, this was just a waste of everybody's time. And I'm not accepting a role. Like, yeah, I was up front with you. I'm only auditioning because my daughter is auditioning.
Oh, geez. Well, that's, moral of this story for all the theater companies listening, respect the actors that come out and audition for you. You know, it seems pretty obvious, but apparently we need to tell that to people. Oh, man. But anyway, why don't we take a break? We're kind of at the halfway point, and then we will jump into your story, Jeremy. Sweet. How does that sound?
Sounds good to me.
Cool. All right, we'll be right back.
Bye.
All right, we are back. We had just had a little break. It's starting to smell a little bit like coffee in here, so that's fun. Taylor texted me before I got here, and she was like, do you want some coffee? I have whatever else. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not a coffee drinker. Thank you. And she was like, fine, bitch. So
no hot bean water for you.
Exactly. Yeah. Are you guys big coffee drinkers?
Not as much
It depends.
as it used to be.
I'm usually a tea drinker, but lately I've been really digging the coffee lately.
Nice. Well, since I'm not a big coffee drinker, what would you guys suggest to just jump into drinking coffee?
We just use like Folgers.
Oh, we're like cheap coffee. It's
Gotcha.
It's nostalgic for me. My dad always drank Folgers, and so I'm like,
sure.
The red thing.
That's what we had at my house too, so it all makes sense.
That's probably why you don't like coffee.
Well,
maybe.
You have no nostalgia to tie to it. So.
Right.
We got like people who are like, oh, this is the French press, and this is the natural drip and everything. I was like, just give me my fucking coffee.
Right. I'm not drinking this for the taste. I'm drinking for caffeine.
What do you mean by blonde?
Right. I love it. Well, cool. Like I say, we just had a quick break, but now, Jeremy, let's go ahead and talk about you a little bit. Same kind of deal, Taylor. If you want to jump in, ask questions, do whatever. Grill him if you need. Exactly. Cool. Well, Jeremy.
He even called you
Jeremy. That's your guys' name. Yeah, Jeremy. Were you born and raised here in Utah?
Yeah, I was born and raised in West Valley.
Gotcha. Cool. Cool. So, what was tiny little Jeremy like baby Jeremy?
I kind of came from a very weird type of family dynamic, you know, very much very Republican, very religious, and very very conservative.
Right.
And so when I started to break out and to do my own thing, like a lot of people know me for like my satiric humor and everything like that, and my somewhat twisted humor. It wasn't always as polished as it was.
Okay.
And so it took many, many years of failure and offending people to finally find that formula that kind of worked in with my personality. And even still today, I still get like private messages and stuff of, hey man, you went too far. And I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, go fuck yourself.
Gotcha. Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Did that have anything to do with theater? Were you doing theater while you were kind of growing up?
Actually, funny story. My family being what they were, I was really I wasn't as close to my father as I would have liked to been. So he was really like into hunting and football and all this different stuff, right? Yep. And I just that wasn't really me. And I tried to kind of go that route. So when I came into high school, I was actually I had seen a couple theater productions, maybe one or two in my life. My first show that I ever saw was Brigadoon, and I just remember that some theater magic happened, and I was like, this is blowing my mind, right? So in high school, though, I I wanted to really connect with my dad, so I joined the football team.
Gotcha.
And I was horrible at it. I was really horrible at football. And one game, my coach, we were up like 21 points, fourth quarter, a minute to go in the game. So, of course, the coach throws me a bone. He's like, hey, go in and play a little bit. So I get in there, and I was just laid flat by this like 300-pound Polynesian kid. I was laid on my ass, and I was injured because of it. And I was told that I would have to go through some physical therapy and to because my hip was kind of messed up. And so I was involved in a weight training class. And because of the PT, the doctor said, hey, you can't be lifting weights. So I went to the school counselor, and he basically said, all right, well, we're coming in your senior year. We're halfway through the year. you have two options to replace the class. You can either do geometry or theater. And I was like,
Seems like an obvious one for sure.
I'm going to go with theater. And it just so happens that they were doing the Crucible at the time, and they needed a Mr. What is it? I don't even know. It was some weird name, and so the Crucible was my first experience with theater.
Wow.
And after that, I was actually fortunate enough that I had a cousin, Megan Heaps. So she was a young ambassador. She was really involved with the Hale Center Theater. And through those connections, I was able to get into Hale Center Theater, working as an usher and also behind the scenes, where I kind of learned the business of theater from Hale. And it was really, really eye-opening to me, and kind of pushed me into doing more and more shows and being more involved with the business aspect and everything. And then one day I got a call from Glenn Carpenter over at the Empress Theater, and he's like, hey, I need a monkey in Seussical. So I was like, all right. And that's what began my theater journey.
Gotcha. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, you'd mentioned that you'd started at the Empress. At least on the community level. Was that kind of your home before you found Midvale then, or did you kind of jump around?
It was. I actually did 7 shows a year for 5 years at the Empress. I have been involved in at least 20 to 30 productions back in the day. And I also, it's where I met Sean Maxfield there. It was their old artistic director, and we both went into this with this vision to revamp the Empress. And so a lot of the modern day set, where the tech booth is, do you know the Charlie Brown door on stage left? That wasn't there. We built that.
Gotcha.
The platform we built, we redid the stage.
Wow.
We went in with the mission that we were going to revamp and rebuild this theater from the ground up. And that's actually where I met all of our other friends like Danny Eggers and everybody from that experience.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's really cool. Yeah, I mean, even just doing tech and doing shows up at the Empress now, I'm just like, wow, Jeremy literally shaped all of those shows for me. That's pretty cool. But
I even wrote one show, but that flopped.
Oh, really? What was it about?
It was actually just a Christmas benefit. We basically just took a lot of different Christmas songs and put a timeline to it. The story was that a bunch of people had come to the theater for a Christmas get together, and we got snowed in. You know, and
right?
Oh no, we're snowed in for the next.
Gotcha.
Okay, well, how do
And
we
then the
pass
next
the time?
have yourself a very
Exactly.
I love it.
So-
I think this needs to come back on Midvale stage.
I would love to do something like that again.
I would too.
Let's write a show, the three of us.
There you
Let's
go.
do it.
And it was all Christmas music, so no rights involved to
Right.
it, and so we were just using it to kind of funnel money into the Empress.
Yeah, gotcha. Cool. Well, that's awesome. I've always wanted to write a show, so I'm very envious of you for that. But cool. So you do all these shows at the Empress. What brought you to Midvale?
Actually, so I started to hit a point. I think I was 21, 22 at the time, and I'd been performing since I was 17. And so I was like, okay, I want to start to branch out a little bit, right? So I did some productions with Dark Horse back when they were still a theater company. I did some with Draper Historic, and finally I landed my first big kid role, I guess you could say. I was in the Utah premiere of Avenue Q, and so
cool.
I got into there. I was really, really excited, and then that's when I met Tammy. She came in, she saw a show. She had brought Liz and a couple other people, and they were saying, hey, we just casted Avenue Q, or we're in the process of casting Avenue Q. We would love it if you came out and audition. I didn't take her up on at the time,
Sure.
but that's where I met Tammy, and I learned about the Midvale Main Street Theater.
Okay.
My first discovery of Midvale, though, was Dallin Thorpe and I were doing Footloose at the Empress. He was Ren, I was Willard, and Tammy had approached him and asked him to come and do that show. So that's when I kind of learned what Midvale was
Gotcha.
because we were kind of talking about the show and everything while we were still doing the show.
Cool. Gotcha. Interesting. Okay. So you heard about us, and then a couple years went by before you actually decided to step on the stage. What about Chicago, which is your first show at Midvale? What about that show in particular brought you to auditioning?
Yeah. Well, actually, so the show itself, I had been doing a couple things for Tammy. She had contracted me to do opening shows and some advertising, marketing and stuff. I was involved with Legally Blonde, and I was also involved with Hairspray.
Gotcha.
He did the opening before we ever met. He actually did the opening.
Yeah, I did the opening. Welcome to the Midvale Main Street Theatre.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that was me
Cool.
and my friend Megan Golden. But we so Tammy and I had already known each other, and then I had just moved into the lofts, which were those new apartments just like where Caitlin Freeman lives.
Right.
They're
Okay.
right next to her.
Yeah, just down the street from the theater itself.
Exactly. And so she had actually just reached out to me and said, hey, we didn't get enough guys. Do you want to be in a show?
Sure.
And I was
Gotcha.
like, it's Chicago. Hell yeah, I want to be in Chicago.
Awesome.
So,
Cool.
So that's kind of where I went in. And I was actually right at the tail end of my divorce. So, I was kind of looking for
an outlet.
you know. So it was really good. And so I jumped at that opportunity, and I've been there ever since.
Cool. Gotcha. So did you audition for Chicago, or did you
I did not.
Okay.
No, I
gotcha.
was recruited.
Gotcha. Cool. Well then, yeah. How was Chicago, and what was different from like a Midvale show versus like the Empress shows or wherever else that you'd been doing these shows?
I walked in and there was no filter whatsoever
Okay.
with Midvale.
Good.
With the Empress, we have to kind of we had to watch ourselves. If I said damn after I messed up or something, it was like, hey, come on, I'm family friendly. I'm sure they've changed it, but back then it wasn't the case. So it was a huge dynamic of people were cursing, and we weren't editing the shows, which was really different to me. I'd only been in a couple shows where there was no editing involved, and so it was really different to see a community theater that was doing the full material, and I had a lot of respect for that. And then the only thing that I thought was a little off about the production of Chicago was just that our music director wasn't there, and there was a lot of drama behind that. But
Sure.
I that's the only thing that I was like, this is weird, this is different.
Yeah, gotcha. Sure. Well, I mean, I could only assume, since I wasn't in the show, that you did have a great experience doing the rehearsals and everything like that. How was it being on Midvale stage when the show opened, and how did you feel about the crowd and everything like that?
I was really impressed with the amount of genuine support that the theater got, and the different types of people that they got. Being someone from the Empress, not saying anything about their audience, but they do have a very supportive audience.
Definitely.
I am truly under the impression that they could put on the biggest flop in history and their audience would still love them. They've got a really big following.
Yeah.
With Midvale, it was a little different. It was like some audiences didn't enjoy the show, and then there were other audiences who just ate it up and they loved it. And it was really nice to get that kind of that balance, that kind of, this is a good crowd, this is a bad crowd,
Right.
to get that feel.
Did you ever learn how to either deal with them or how to get them on your side at all?
Oh yeah, like there's a bunch of things you could do. I'm under the personal belief that the audience is just kind of a mirror, and I everybody's like, oh, you can't blame the audience for a bad show. I mean, yeah, but I am under the belief that, hey, if the audience isn't pumped up, if they're not energetic, all you have to do is just be a little bit more energetic. And if I am truly under the impression that if an actor can't control the audience, then that shows the amateur side of them. Being able to control the audience and have that stage presence is what being an actor is.
As always, the Midvale Main Street Theatre podcast is sponsored, funnily enough, by the Midvale Main Street Theatre. Check out new and exciting updates on everything going on at the Midvale Main Street Theatre by going to www.midvaletheatre.com or check them out on Facebook and Instagram at Midvale Main Street Theatre. You can find show notes and much more by going to our podcast's Facebook page at facebook.com/MMST podcast. Special thanks to Ashley Howell, Joel Clark, and Matthew Petrucci for help making this show happen. I owe you guys the world. I've been Michael Howell, and this has been the Midvale Main Street Theatre podcast. The views expressed have been mine alone and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Midvale Main Street Theatre, its owners, or volunteers. If you've liked what you've heard today, please consider finding the Midvale Main Street Theatre podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, or whatever podcast listener you're using and dropping us a 5-star review. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at MMST Podcast. Thank you very much, and until next time, we'll see ya.